Welcome to Crosstalk Solutions. My name's Chris, and holy cow, what a roller coaster it has been this evening as we receive some new news about the Ubiquiti breach that happened about 8 months ago. So on the screen right here, you can see my video from April 1st, 2021. This is a day after we received information from a supposed Ubiquiti whistleblower via Brian Krebs, KrebsOnSecurity.com, Brian Krebs's blog page. So I made this video as basically a way to say, hey, you might have been hacked. Here's the safe thing to do. Here's how you reset your credentials. Here's how you turn on or reset your multi-factor authentication for Ubiquiti. And then we went into just basically ripping on Ubiquiti for everything that this whistleblower had said, claiming essentially that Ubiquiti had massively downplayed the scope of the breach and, that there's a lot more to it that is not made public. And thankfully, this whistleblower is coming forward to let us all know what happened. Spoiler alert, however, the whistleblower was complete BS. The whistleblower himself that sent the letter to Brian Krebs made it all up. And made it all up because Ubiquiti didn't pay his ransom, right? So he had extorted Ubiquiti for some money. When Ubiquiti didn't pay up, he said, well, guess what? Now I'm a whistleblower, and I'm going to make up all kinds of stuff about Ubiquiti in order to malign them publicly, which actually worked because their stock price dropped dramatically, which we're going to talk about in just a little bit. So, links to everything down below. But before we start really digging into this, I want to say publicly that you just never know. You can't believe everything that you read online. I fell for this. Me personally, I fell for this hook, line, and sinker, right? Because at the time that this happened, Ubiquiti had been pretty mum about anything. They weren't really talking about this breach whatsoever. And then this whistleblower comes out. And Krebs on Security is a trusted source in information security. So when he publishes an article like this, you have to assume that he did his due diligence to at least, figure out if it was made up or real, or if this person that's the whistleblower is an actual Ubiquiti employee. And so by the time it gets published on, Krebs on Security, you'd think that it's pretty bulletproof, right? Turns out it's not. It was completely made up, right? So apologies to Ubiquiti, I guess, for putting out videos like this one, where I really ripped into him pretty hard. So let's talk about everything that happened. So the article that came out today, and again, links to everything down below. By the way, for the latest updates, make sure you follow Crosstalk Solutions on Twitter at CrosstalkSOL. I'm sure I'll be tweeting about this over the next couple of days. And subscribe to Crosstalk Solutions if you haven't done so already. It really helps the channel, and it is absolutely free. It's literally the least you can do is subscribe with that subscribe button down below. Okay, so bleepingcomputer.com, former Ubiquiti dev charged for trying to extort his employer. Nicholas Sharp, a former employee of networking device maker Ubiquiti, was arrested and charged today with data theft and attempting to extort his employer while posing as a whistleblower and an anonymous hacker. As alleged, Nicholas Sharp exploited his access as a trusted insider to steal gigabytes of confidential data from his employer, then, posing as an anonymous hacker, sent the company a nearly $2 million ransom demand, which is basically Bitcoin demand. At the time, it was worth about $1.9 million worth of Bitcoin. Off the top of my head, I think it was like 50 Bitcoin or something like that. All right, so as further alleged, after the FBI searched his home in connection with the theft, Sharp, now posing as an anonymous company whistleblower, planted damaging news stories falsely claiming the theft had been by a hacker enabled by a vulnerability in the company's computer systems. Again, totally made up. The whistleblower says there's a vulnerability in Ubiquiti's stuff, and that's how the hacker got in. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. But it was completely made up because he got in just using his own employee credentials. Okay, so exposed by an internet outage. According to the indictment, we're going to go through the indictment. Sharp stole gigabytes of confidential data from Ubiquiti's AWS and GitHub infrastructure using his cloud administrator credentials, cloning hundreds of GitHub repositories over SSH. Throughout this process, the defendant tried hiding his home IP address using Surfshark's VPN services. However, his actual location was exposed after a temporary internet outage. What does that mean? It means he didn't have his VPN kill switch turned on, right? So I've never heard of Surfshark before, but there's 1,000 different types of VPN proxy services out there. The one that I like to use is private internet access. Private internet access has a VPN kill switch, meaning that if you are not connected through their VPN, you have no internet connectivity. It will not let you connect to the internet unless you are connected through their services, right? I think it's called Internet Kill Switch or VPN Kill Switch, something like that. To hide his malicious activity, Sharp also altered log retention policies and other files that would have exposed his identity during the subsequent incident investigation. Among other things, Sharp applied a one-day lifecycle retention policy to certain logs on AWS, which would have the effect of deleting certain evidence of the intruder's activity within 1 day. So he went to Brian Krebs and he said, the reason that Ubiquiti has no idea who committed this crime, who committed this hacking intrusion breach, is because they don't keep log files on their database servers, right? But that's completely made up. That's complete BS because in reality, he changed the log file retention policy in order to hide his activities, right? So he hid his own IP addresses by deleting logs anything older than 1 day, and then as a whistleblower went to Brian Krebs and said, well, they don't even keep logs. That's why they can't find anyone. Crazy, right? This whole thing is absolutely insane. After Ubiquiti disclosed a security incident in January following Sharp's data theft, while working to assess the scope and remediate the security breach efforts, he also tried extorting the company, posing as an anonymous hacker. His ransom note demanded almost $2 million in exchange for returning the stolen files and to identify a remaining vulnerability, which was BS. It was made up. The company refused to pay the ransom and instead found and removed a second backdoor from its systems, changed all employee credentials, and issued the January 11th security breach notification. So, of course, after he didn't pay the ransom, he then says, well, screw you, Ubiquiti. I'm going to go public and make you look really, really bad. And that's what happened. Billions of dollars in losses after stock drop. After his extortion attempts failed, Sharp shared information with the media while pretending to be a whistleblower and accusing the company of downplaying the incident. This caused Ubiquiti's stock price to fall by roughly 20% from $349 per share on March 30th to $290 per share on April 1st, amounting to losses of over $4 billion in market capitalization in 1 day. Sharp subsequently re-victimized his employer by causing the publication of misleading news articles about the company's handling of the breach that he had perpetrated, which were followed by a significant drop in the company's share price associated with the loss of billions of dollars in market capitalization. The company confirmed on April 1st that it was the target of an extortion attempt following a January security breach, with no indication that customer accounts were affected after Sharp, acting as a whistleblower, challenged his employer's take on the breach, saying the incident's actual impact was massive. He also said Ubiquiti did not have a logging system, thus preventing them from checking what data or systems the attacker accessed. This lines up with the DOJ's info on him tampering with the company's logging systems. While the DOJ didn't name Sharp's employer in today's press release of the indictment, all the details perfectly align with previous info on the Ubiquiti breach and information presented in Sharp's LinkedIn account. Sharp is charged with 4 counts and is facing a maximum sentence of 37 years in prison if found guilty. Of course, if found guilty on all 4 counts. Wow, right? Like, what more can you say about that? This story is absolutely insane. All right, so let's go ahead and dig into the actual indictment from the DOJ. Okay, so here is a PDF copy of the indictment from United States District Court, Southern District of New York, United States of America versus Nicholas Sharp, defendant. Okay, so 4 total counts. Count 1, computer fraud and abuse. This is the hacking, right? Okay, so the grand jury charges. Number 1, at all times relevant to this indictment, Company 1 was a technology company headquartered in New York, New York. That's Ubiquiti. At all times relevant to the indictment, Nicholas Sharp, the defendant, was a senior software engineer at Company 1, responsible for software development and cloud infrastructure security, among other things. From at least in or about 2020 up to and including in or about 2021, Nicholas Sharp repeatedly misused administrative access provided to him as an information technology employee to download gigabytes of Company One's confidential data. During the course of this cybersecurity incident, Sharp caused damage to Company One's computer systems by altering log retention policies and other files to conceal his unauthorized activity on the network. While working with a team remediating the effects of the incident, Sharp sent a ransom note to Company One, to Ubiquiti, posing as an anonymous attacker who claimed to have obtained unauthorized access to Ubiquiti's computer networks. The ransom note sought 50 Bitcoin, a cryptocurrency, which is the equivalent of approximately $1.9 billion at the time, in exchange for the return of the stolen data and the identification of an existing backdoor or vulnerability to Ubiquiti's computer systems. After Ubiquiti refused the demand, Sharp published a portion of the stolen files on a publicly accessible online platform. Sharp subsequently engaged in a media campaign to malign Ubiquiti's response and disclosures related to the incident, while concealing his own role, causing Company One to lose billions of dollars in market capitalization value. Okay, so number 4, at all times relevant to this indictment, Ubiquiti used multiple third-party providers to host its data, basically saying that they used AWS. And the AWS infrastructure included servers that ran a portion of Ubiquiti's operations and hosted a certain of Ubiquiti's system, code, and credentials. All times relevant to this indictment, Ubiquiti also subscribed to GitHub. Developers employed by Ubiquiti had individualized accounts on GitHub, which provided them with varying levels of access to various repositories hosting the company's code and development projects. Keybase is an encrypted social networking service that permits users to, among other things, send private messages and files directly to other Keybase users, and also to upload files that would be publicly available to any Keybase user. A VPN, and then it's just saying this is what a VPN is, and talking about how he used Surfshark. Surfshark is a company headquartered in the British Virgin Islands that sells a commercial VPN service. Okay. The cybersecurity incident. Here's the detailed breakdown of what actually happened, allegedly, according to this indictment. Nicholas Sharp, the defendant, was employed by Ubiquiti from in or about August 2018 up to and including on or about April 1st, 2021. April 1st, 2021, by the way, the day that I released this video right here. Including throughout the time period of the incident in or about December 2020 and the ransom demand in January 2021. So as he's sending the ransom all the way up to where he became a whistleblower, he was still working for Ubiquiti. Sharp was a senior developer who had access to credentials for Ubiquiti's GitHub and AWS servers. On or about July 7th, 2020, Nicholas Sharp, the defendant, used his personal PayPal account to purchase a subscription to Surfshark VPN. At all times relevant to this indictment, Nicholas Sharp, the defendant, resided at a residence in Portland, Oregon. Why has this got to happen in my home state, right? The internet connection from the Sharp residence was associated with a specific internet protocol address, which we're going to call the Sharp IP. That's his home IP address, not his VPN IP address. On or about December 9th, 2020, applied for a position at a different company. On or about December 10th, 2020, at approximately 2:55 a.m., and again at 3:16 a.m., Nicholas Sharp, the defendant, used his own Ubiquiti credentials to access a particular key on Company One's infrastructure through AWS servers. The connection was made through the Sharp IP, so he did not mask his IP address. The key accessed by Sharp permitted the user to, among other things, obtain access to other credentials within Company One's infrastructure and to run searches through that infrastructure. So basically, he connected with his own IP using his own public-private key pair, his own private key, right? Then it says approximately 2 minutes later, at approximately 3:18 a.m., an attacker connected to the AWS infrastructure using a masked IP provided by Surfshark VPN. The attacker used the same key, the same private key, accessed by Nicholas Sharp, the defendant, 2 minutes earlier to connect to AWS to run the command get caller identity. That command returns the username and account information for the AWS account for which it is run and can validate that the credential is usable. So the guy logged in with his own IP address and his own private key, then logged out, fired up his VPN, and then logged back in with his same exact private key, supposedly as the attacker now. That's not too bright. Not too bright, Mr. Nicholas Sharp. On December 21st, 2020, at approximately 9:58 p.m., Nicholas Sharp, the defendant, logged into the company's GitHub using his own work credentials. He logged in through his Sharp IP address, his own, Portland, Oregon-based IP address, and viewed the names of certain repositories of data. Approximately 1 minute later, the defendant used the Surfshark VPN that masked his true IP to log into GitHub through SSH using Ubiquiti's high-level GitHub account. Sharp used the SSH connection to execute a series of commands to clone Ubiquiti's repository of data to Sharp's computer. So again, he logged in as himself, logged out, fired up his VPN, logged back in, and then started cloning all of their GitHub repositories. Although throughout the vast majority of the incident, Nicholas Sharp, the defendant, successfully masked his true IP address through Surfshark VPN, in one fleeting instance during the exfiltration of data, the Sharp IP address was logged, making an SSH connection to the GitHub server. Between December 21st at approximately 11:47 p.m. and December 22nd at approximately 2:16 a.m., Sharp used the Surfshark VPN to mask his connection while cloning the repositories. No further clone commands were processed until approximately 39 minutes later, at approximately 2:55 a.m., when GitHub account 1 received a command to clone another repository from the Sharp IP address associated with his residence. Approximately 9 minutes later, the clone commands continued from GitHub, once again masked by the Surfshark IP. So again, he didn't have his kill switch turned on, and he somehow connected and was doing all this stuff. He ran one clone command as himself accidentally, and that's how he got caught. I mean, there's a lot of evidence here, but that was sort of the smoking gun evidence right there. On December 22nd at approximately 2:16 a.m., the attacker's exfiltration command stopped. At around the same time, the internet service at the Sharp residence went down. At approximately 2:54 a.m., the internet service at the Sharp residence was re-enabled, and approximately 1 minute later, the Sharp IP was logged, unmasked by any VPN, using GitHub account 1 to continue sending clone commands. Over the next several hours, Nicholas Sharp, the defendant, cloned approximately 155 repository from Ubiquiti through GitHub using the Surfshark VPN to once again mask his IP address. The defendant accessed Ubiquiti's GitHub or AWS data using the Surfshark VPN through at least on or about December 26, 2020. Among other things, Sharp applied one-day lifecycle retention policies to certain logs on AWS, which would have the effect of deleting certain evidence of the intruder's activity within 1 day. Now here's where it kind of starts to get interesting, because remember, he's still working for Ubiquiti while all of this is happening. In fact, he's part of the incident response team trying to figure out what happened. The incident was discovered by other employees of Ubiquiti on or about December 28, 2020. At the time, Nicholas Sharp joined a team working to assess the scope and damage caused by the incident and remediate its effects, all while concealing his role in committing the incident. Sharp made numerous false statements to Company One's employees and agents to evade detection. For example, upon the team's identification of Surfshark VPN as the tool used by the attacker, Sharp pretended to have never used Surfshark VPN himself. What? Surfshark? I never heard of such a thing. Surfshark. So weird. Who's ever heard of Surfshark? On or about January 7th, 2021 at approximately 4:01 a.m., senior employees at Ubiquiti, including an employee located in Manhattan, New York, received a ransom email. So this is January 7th, right? This is maybe a week or two after the incident. They received a ransom email from the perpetrator of the incident. The email was sent through an IP address, again associated with Surfshark VPN. The ransom email offered, in substance, to return the stolen data and not to publish or use it in exchange for the payment of 25 Bitcoin. I think it was 50 Bitcoin before, now it's 25. The ransom email also offered to identify a purportedly still unblocked backdoor used by the attacker for the sum of another 25 Bitcoin. Oh, I see. So he'd return all the data and not make it public for 25 Bitcoin, and then for the low price of another 25 Bitcoin, he would let them know about this vulnerability that he used to get in, which I think was completely made up. The ransom email also referenced a chat communication on Keybase sent by the attacker to senior security employee at Ubiquiti. The Keybase communication contained a copy of the ransom email text as well as uploaded examples of Ubiquiti's stolen data. Ubiquiti did not pay the ransom prior to the ransom deadline set forth in the ransom email. On or about January 9th, at approximately 11:57 p.m., 3 minutes before the ransom deadline was to expire, Nicholas Sharp, the defendant, sent an employee of Ubiquiti a message on Keybase as the anonymous perpetrator of the incident. The message read, quote, "No Bitcoin, no talk, we done here. We done." The message contained a link to a public Keybase folder on which the perpetrator had uploaded certain of Ubiquiti's stolen proprietary data for public access. Company 1 promptly caused Keybase to remove the folder. On or about January 29, 2021, Nicholas Sharp, the defendant, wiped and reset the laptop computer he used to perpetrate the incident. About a month, 20 days later, after he sent that ransom demand, then he wiped his laptop. And then on March 24th, agents from the FBI executed a search warrant on the Sharp residence, so at this point, they basically already knew that it was him, and seized electronic devices belonging to Nicholas Sharp, the defendant. In the course of the execution of that search, Sharp made numerous false statements to the FBI agents. You do not lie to the FBI. That's another, I think that he is also getting in trouble for that, including, among other things, in substance that he was not the perpetrator of the incident and that he had not used Surfshark VPN prior to the discovery of the incident. I didn't use Surfshark VPN to hack Ubiquiti. Sir, we didn't say anything about Surfshark VPN. Oh, shoot. When confronted with records demonstrating that Sharp bought the Surfshark VPN service in July 2020, approximately 6 months prior to the incident, Sharp falsely stated, in part and substance, that someone else must have used his PayPal account to make the purchase. Several days after the FBI executed a search warrant on the Sharp residence and seized certain electronic devices belonging to Nicholas Sharp, the defendant, Sharp caused false or misleading news stories to be published about the incident and Ubiquiti's disclosures and response to the incident. Okay, so that is essentially his letter to Brian Krebs. Now notice that March 24th is when he was raided by the FBI, and then the Brian Krebs article was published on March 30th, so just almost a week later. In particular, Sharp pretended that Ubiquiti had been hacked by an unidentified perpetrator who maliciously acquired root administrator access to Ubiquiti's AWS accounts. In fact, as Sharp well knew, Sharp had taken Company 1's data using credentials to which he had access in his role as Ubiquiti's AWS cloud administrator, and Sharp had used that data in a failed attempt to extort Ubiquiti for millions of dollars. Following the publication of these articles between Tuesday, March 30th and Wednesday, March 31st, Ubiquiti's stock price fell approximately 20%, losing over $4 billion in market capitalization. That hurts. That is a big ouch. As a result of perpetrating incident, Nicholas Sharp, the defendant, caused far in excess of $5,000 in losses to Ubiquiti, which included costs incurred by Company 1 to retain forensic outside experts to investigate the incident and remediate harm caused by Sharp. Basically saying that, above $5,000 in damage to the company, I think is just a different level of crime as something that's going to be below $5,000. So the combination of Ubiquiti having to hire people to figure out exactly what happened, as well as the stock hit that they took, it caused damages to Ubiquiti, apparently well in excess of billions of dollars, let alone $5,000. Okay, so that's just count 1 of 4 counts. All right, count 2 is extortion. All right, so this is him extorting Ubiquiti for 50 Bitcoin from at least in or about 2020 up to at least in or about January 2021. The Southern District of New York and elsewhere, Nicholas Sharp, defendant, knowingly and with intent to extort from a person, firm, association, and corporation any money or other thing of value transmitted in interstate and foreign commerce, a communication containing a threat to injure the property and reputation of the addressee and of another, to wit, Sharp transmitted an interstate email and other electronic messages to Ubiquiti seeking a ransom of 50 Bitcoin. Count 3, wire fraud. Nicholas Sharp, the defendant, willfully and knowingly having devised and intended to devise a scheme to artifice to defraud, and for obtaining money and property by means of false and fraudulent pretenses, representations, and promises transmitted and caused to be transmitted by means of wire, radio, and television communication in interstate and foreign commerce, blah, 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 blah. He committed wire fraud. Allegedly. And then count 4, making false statements. This is essentially him lying to the FBI and saying, I don't know what you're talking about. Surfshark, I've never heard of Surfshark VPN. But sir, we have you purchasing Surfshark VPN. Yeah. Maybe, no, that was something else. That wasn't Surfshark. I have never heard of Surfshark. So essentially, that's basically the whole thing. And man, what a crazy story. I'm interested to see what Brian Krebs has to say about this, because a lot of this blew up because of him. I mean, his article, the whistleblower sent information to Brian Krebs, who then published it, and then everyone else followed suit, including myself, putting out a video about it one day later. So now we're putting out another video. I want to be the first one to get this video out because I am first to admit when I'm wrong about anything. And it looks like, in this case, the video that I put out in April 1st, 2020, while the substance of the video in terms of how to protect your account, change your password, disable and re-enable multi-factor authentication, etc., that's all valid and good information, but all of the rest of it was based on complete BS, okay? And so you can't always believe everything that you see, everything that you read, everything that hits you in the face from online sources and social media. What do you guys think about this story? Put your comments down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'm going to read absolutely every single one of them, and hopefully I can get this video out really quickly. But if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you give me a thumbs up. Remember to subscribe to Crosstalk Solutions if you haven't done so already. Follow us on Twitter at CrosstalkSOL, and we will see you in the next video.